So anxiety and depression, it's a big problem. I think one of the things to point out is that anxiety and depression are two sides of the same coin, right? But when I think about anxiety and depression, is we have to start with where's it coming from. I think it's question number one. I think question number two becomes, how is it there? How did it get there? Right? If we don't know where it's coming from or how it got there, I don't think it helps us to jump into the solutions.
We can't name it.
We can't name it, right? So let's talk about that for a second. We think about where it's coming from. Typically, anxiety, depression is the limbic system of the brain. So like the science behind it, that's the deep limbic system of the brain. We see overactivity in that part of the brain, kind of regardless of whether it's coming through lack of biological, so like there's something wrong physically, even when it's a spiritual issue, we have increased function or increased activity inside the limbic system of the brain, which you've heard about fight and flight. Mm-hmm. It's a missing of the front part of the brain, which is our reasoning part of the brain, which tells us slow down, what should we do, what shouldn't we do, what's true, what's not true, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like, where's it at in the brain? So the second part would be, where's it coming from?
Mm-hmm. Which could be a potential of three things from my perspective. Physical, something biological or chemical is off in our body that is not being treated. Thyroid, for example.
Nutrition, vitamin deficiencies.
Mm-hmm. Emotional and mental. The thoughts that I'm entertaining and allowing to grow deep roots in my heart or in my mind, if those are not under control or truthful, then that will lead to depression or anxiety.
So the psychological side of it, so the way we think or the way we allow our brain to think, the feeling side of it.
Mm-hmm. And then circumstantially or situations, things going on in our life that are hard or discouraging or overwhelming, out of our control, that can bring us down.
So then there's different places, it's in a specific part of the brain. There's different things that onset or bring it on, right? So that's all good and fine, but who really cares? We want to figure out how to deal with it, I would think. Would you agree? So what do we do there? Well, what do I do when I've got depression or I have anxiety or I have both? What do we do?
Well, God commands us to love Him with all our hearts, mind, soul, and strength. And so our bodies and our minds and our spirits, they're all interconnected. One system always affects the other. We cannot separate them. So when someone's struggling with depression and anxiety, it's more than likely a combination of all of those. And the longer we don't seek help or support or truth from God, the more intense it gets, and it pushes us to do something about it, whether we're seeking medical support or encouragement from friends or church.
So is there a difference? I would say no, but I'll ask you, is there a difference between the spiritual or the Christian response to anxiety and depression and the worldly response to anxiety and depression?
No, I don't think so. I think what God has ordained works, and science has proven it, and the secular world finds it in research, because God's truth always stands. So
on that note, so biologically, right? So if we go to our doctors, they say you need to exercise, you need to get out, and you need to spend 20 minutes elevating your heart rate. That's extremely important because it works with your
dopamine.
The dopamines and all those hits happen when we exercise. From the worldly standpoint, they would use the words. Sorry, I totally drew a blank. From the worldly standpoint, they would use the words that this is like the holy grail of mental health, of brain health, is exercise. So if we talk about anxiety and depression, you need to get out and be doing exercise.
Yeah.
I think from a biblical standpoint, we look at it and we say scripturally it says we are to take care of our bodies. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we're called to do. I think as we do that,
and work is good.
Work is good, right? God created work is good at the very beginning. Adam was called to work, and it was a good thing. So that's kind of biological, right? So exercising. What about our thoughts? We talked about thoughts being the negative side. What are we called to on the positive side? Or what are we called to do in response to anxiety and depression?
Well, the leading, most effective therapeutic model is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is all over Scripture. Paul encourages us to take captive our thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. And when we are anxious, Paul again reminds us, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, with prayer and petition, bring our requests to God. And even beyond that, after we've said, God, help, I'm struggling, I'm depressed, I'm discouraged, I'm overwhelmed, Paul guides us even further and tells us what to think about, whatever is true, whatever is honorable and righteous and praiseworthy, whatever is excellent. Think on these things.
So our thoughts are a huge component of this. Scripturally, we're called to think on those things. From a secular standpoint, it's be positive, think positive.
Find what you can see in your life that will generate gratitude or thankfulness. There's huge movements secularly that point to that as very powerful in overcoming depression and anxiety.
That's kind of some general things that we can do. I'm thinking that one of the things with anxiety and depression is the onset. So we have to work through this concept of I am suffering from anxiety or depression right now. So what do I do? Right? There's action steps I can do, but then there's also, as we learn those things, we can also say, hey, I'm going towards that cliff, or I feel myself going down into that lower level where I know it's going to, in stopping ourselves, right? So one of the things I think about from my training is the whole negative thought concept. So automatic negative thoughts, the ants in my head, right? So those are, almost all of them are pre-shadowing, are putting something on the situation that's not there. So my boss is going to fire me. I know he's going to fire me. He hates me. So he's going to fire me because he hates me. That right there is, I'm forced. I don't know that he hates me, or I don't know that he's going to do that thing because I'm not inside his head. I can't do that. So I'm putting myself, I'm foretelling. So when I can start to realize that I'm doing those things, I can start to realize, oh, wait a minute. My thoughts are driving me down to that anxiety, depression level. So I got a tip for you. How some things that we fight against it. We talked a little bit of cognitive therapy and the way we think. One of the things that I've seen work a lot with the people I've worked with, I don't know if you've used this tactic or not. I think you have. It's the concept. It's a couple questions. The first question is that thought true? So is the thought true that my boss hates me? We're going to go on that example because I can't think of another example. Does my boss hate me? Is that true? Yeah, maybe. The next question is, can you absolutely know that that's true? Well, not really. I can't absolutely know that my boss is true because I'm not inside his head, right? And then the next question is, how do you feel when you believe the opposite of that thought? Well, my boss loves me. I feel really good about that. That feels amazing.
Yeah.
So those types of thought processes, if we slow down enough to think, going all the way back to the beginning here with our prefrontal cortex, we need to put it in the front of our brain to stop and think about it. If we can slow down enough to stop that cycle, we can figure out what's driving us down. What's your thoughts on that?
It's good.
So the final or the fourth question in that series of questions is, how would your life be like if you believed the opposite?
If you believe the truth.
If you believe the truth, right? Well, I would feel a lot better. I would be absolutely happy to go to work because I don't think my boss hates me. So we've stopped at the point where I had the thought process, which is the trigger. Right? I've got this trigger. And I think that's probably the key when we're talking about dropping into a depression or anxiety, is to realizing these are my triggers. My triggers are when I'm not in the Word daily, when I'm not praying regularly. when these certain things happen in my life, I start to trigger towards that, and it's that cycle, right? So we've got to break that cycle. If I don't stop and break that cycle, that's why I really like those questions, because those questions physically make me stop, mentally make me stop. So I can't continue to, oh, he hates me, he's not going to hire me, he's not going to give me my raise, he's going to fire me, I can't hand it out, I can't go to work, so I'm in my car with anxiety and I can't even get out of the car. If I can break that cycle, physically stop it,
Right.
I think it's great.
Because we can't control the thoughts that come into our mind. We can't control what happens circumstantially outside of us. But God has given us control to choose how long to think something or how long to entertain those thoughts or emotions. What we think and how we feel and what we do with that is within our control. But when we come back to the truth at the end of those 4 questions, that right thinking refuels our hope.
So what do I do if I know that I have the history of suffering from these things? I know that I've been to those places. Those are things that I fall into depression. I fall into anxiety. I've got the elevated heart rate. I know I know I have depression. Okay. What do I do today to work towards reducing or preventing that?
I think there's lots of options to stabilize and find our foot again, our footing. And so each person is going to have to figure out which resources are going to be most advantageous to them. And then once the ball gets rolling, it will pick up speed and momentum, and slowly you'll make your way out of it. So a strong support system, your faith, what God says that we can hold fast to in the Bible. There's a lot of promises that God gives encouragement to us. Depression and anxiety is real, and we see it in Scripture. It's not something God hasn't heard of or seen or know what to do with. And so there's a lot of encouragement and hope and guidance and truth that will lead us in the right direction.
Yeah, so I think about it. I talked about the 4 questions. Now there's 4 kind of categories. One would be biological. So what am I doing to my physical body? Am I eating the right things, the right nutrition, the right supplements and vitamins? Am I exercising? Am I getting good sleep? Psychologically, what am I thinking? Those 4 questions. What am I believing? Socially, like I could have anxiety right now because my kid's crying in the background here, and that could raise my heart rate. So psychologically, I could take a deep breath and settle down, right? Socially, what does my network look like? We're designed and created to live in community. And those are we surround ourselves with people that are positive. We surround ourselves with people that are biblically based, right? And then I would say 4th, but most importantly, is spiritually. What do I believe? Why do I believe I'm here? What do I believe that God has for me? If I don't have some type of actual bigger why, you're always going to be moving towards that depression because we can't do it by ourselves. You're going to be moving towards that anxiety because we're called for something stronger and bigger. And when we lose focus and sight of that, it's hard. So, I mean, I would kind of make that the number 1, even though it's 4th in my line up here. Our spiritual, not just health, but our spiritual understanding of why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing.
And there's also some quirky strategies we can use because God has designed our bodies and our minds to all work together. There's some random weirdness that research has shown to be effective.
So I've got one. I don't think it's super weird. Do you have one?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the whole breathing. If you guys heard the breathing concepts. So diaphragmatic breathing. We're using all kinds of fancy words today. So diaphragmatic breathing is breathing from the bottom and not your chest. Your diaphragm. Your bottom is from breathing. So I take a really deep breath and I fill up my stomach, if you will. So I push that diaphragm down. A lot of times I breathe up here, really short. That's what anxiety does, right? Bring my shoulders up. To breathe diaphragmatically, I have to relax because you can't get down deep if you do that. A good way to do that is to lay on the floor, put a book on your stomach, and make that book raise up. That's what I was going to say. It's kind of a little quirky, but it forces you to relax.
Or make yourself look pregnant.
Or make yourself look pregnant. Did you have any ideas?
So that works. science on that shows that if you do that for several minutes, you can get your heart rate down to the same level as a sleeping baby. So that's kind of fun. When we harbor sadness and anxiety physically, our posture shows it also. We will hunch in or slouch or hang our head low.
Taller.
And so science has also shown that if we put our shoulders back and stand up straight and taller, that chemically changes things in our body and adjusts our mind as well. This is probably a stretch, but I think about the armor of God and standing firm and making your posture strong and imagining you have the armor of God on and you are ready for battle and equipped, and that instills courage that God is with you and for you. And secular research, I can't remember who said it, but it's new and out there and gaining credibility. Do a Superman pose in the bathroom or a Superwoman pose, because posture matters.
You're going to need to demonstrate that.
Superman pose?
Superman pose. So that's a legit thing, right? So there is posture. So physically connecting my body to my brain is what that research has shown. So what it's saying is the way I think, I believe that I am this, right?
It's true.
And so that pose or that concept is connecting your biological body to your physical brain, which I realize that's a bunch of play on words there, but that's what pushes us forward. And so it's the way we think.
Yeah.
If we believe that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, which we do, and that we're made to live in community and we're made to live in relationship, we need to believe that.
And that's going to cause us to walk different and talk differently to people and connect better with others.
So we've got this whole world pandemic of coronavirus, right, that's hitting us. And so for us, at least at the time of this video, we're like 2-3 months into this, where it was relatively abrupt isolation, at least for where we're located in the States. It was, hey, 3 days from now, you're going home and you're not allowed to leave your house. You're not supposed to leave your house. And so we got this very strong isolation activity that's supposed to happen, right? So a couple things I see there is, first off, we're removing ourselves from the community, from people, from our groups, from our social. That if I go back to my 4 tiers, right, biological, social, psychological, and spiritual, the social, it's gone. It's like you're no longer there, right? In addition to that, what we have with Corona we have the lack of this, right? So I can't do this, right? So like, I came and I see a guy and I'm like, I can't be like, well, I'm not supposed to do that because we have this germ and all this stuff. And so so now there's another barrier between us. Even when I'm physically close to you, there's another barrier there that we have. When I look at that and I say, if we knew what we know now, meaning we knew that this is going to last, we knew this was going to happen, I think there's a couple things we can do or could have done or should be doing to battle it. What do you think?
I agree. It's too bad you couldn't capsule hugs in a bottle.
Yeah. Hugs in a bottle. That'd be great, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, we're going to have bad days. If you're in isolation, I think you're going to have bad days. And the other day we're watching Annie, right? The sun will come out tomorrow. I think that's a concept that we need to think about, but the sun not being the sun physically, it's that Jesus is still there tomorrow. And we're going to have bad days, and we're going to have days when it's not good, right?
Yeah. But that awareness sets us up for overcoming it quicker, because if we feel we're taken by surprise or we're not prepared for hard days, then that makes the pain even deeper.
Yeah, so I agree. Knowing, and that goes back to the triggers, right? So I know I'm going this way. I realize I'm going that way. You know what? I can have a bad day or half a day or bad couple hours. But then I can know, because I know scripturally, and I know that it's this, I can get over this. I can get to the other side. I'm not going to be at the bottom of the pit forever. So some
So
thoughts.
just with communication, eye contact. So getting on some sort of platform where you can see the other person through the screen or from the porch to the car is always more significant because our level of attachment with people is first and foremost the strongest with eye contact. So that always trumps a text message or a message sent through Facebook or Instagram. So if you can make eye contact and then your voice, right? So talking with someone is next best.
So yeah, contact, right?
Yeah.
Going into this, what we would expect is that more people are going to suffer. Meaning more people are going to drop into depressions. People may be like, man, I've never been depressed, but I'm super depressed now because of what's happening. I don't even know what's going on or what I should or shouldn't do. Going into it, it would be develop those relationships, develop those communities that, hey, we're going to hop on Zoom or we're going to hop on Skype and we're going to do a call or we're going to do drive-in church or whatever it is or drive by. We're going to go on a date, a doubles date, and you're going to sit in your car and we're going to sit in our car, right? That's a little bit of a stretch, but you can physically see each other, right? Not the best because this is better, but we find the best and we go towards it. So physically being able to see you or visually being able to see you, right, on the digital platforms.
But also, we go stir crazy when our mind is an empty field. So if we're at home and we know we're staying at home, we need to be wise about how we spend our time, because if we're glued to the TV or a screen or just idly sitting watching the hours tick by, then the mind is a playground for Satan and for our own fears or doubts or hesitations. And so filling our day with work or projects or finding a way to serve or pray for someone else or opening the Bible and memorizing his word, so that in the off times when we're struggling, the Holy Spirit can work within us and bring those words to mind. But allowing our mind to go empty or free range can be very dangerous.
Yeah, that's actually, I was going to say, spiritually, if you're saying, hey, you're going to be isolated for 2 or 3 months, spiritually, I say, how's your relationship with God? Because that's the relationship that's still there. And so we should be always, but that would be the question I would ask myself or ask those around me, would be, how strong is your relationship with God? Because he's the one that's going to be there. And how do you spend your time? I spend my time with him. I spend my time even more with him because I can't go out. I can't do other things. And then the other thing I thought was, and you said it already, I can do things for other people. I can make, like if I'm crafty, if I'm woodworking, or if I'm a sewer, I can make stuff for other people. And there is a connection there that happens, even though I might not physically see you, or I'm just going to put this thing I made for you in your mailbox. There's actually a stronger connection for me than there is for you, because I'm connecting myself with you by doing this thing that I know you need or that I know that you want.
Yeah. Serving others is one of the strategies for overcoming depression, because we get out of our mind and our emotions and we focus on someone else and their needs and their life, and then we create an attachment there. Psalm 9:9, the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. You turn my wailing into dancing, you remove my sackcloth, and you've clothed me with joy. Singing to God actually helps get us out of depression. It works. It changes our brain activity.
Which goes to our call, right? Our call to worship him, right? Why are we here? We're here to worship him, glorify him. So what happens when we do that when we're depressed and we have anxiety? Pretty cool things, because that's what we're called to do.